Have you ever had this huge task out in front of you that you want to achieve, some goal that you've set, but you don't really know how to get there? It's like this huge, mountain in front of you that you don't know how to even like start on, right? Well, the trick is you take your first step. You break this big mountain goal, this big task into smaller pieces. I have this task for myself, something that I've never done. I'd like to be able to hit a shot at a mile. Okay, now you don't just take a gun and shoot at something a mile away. Obviously, that would be like a huge waste of ammo and probably you would never hit it, right? So you have to break this down into steps. So I have this goal of shooting something at a mile. I've never hit anything at a mile before. To give you some background on me, I started shooting, there's a picture of me shooting a .45 in Amarillo, Texas at the age of 3. Now I don't recommend having your kids start shooting at the age of 3, that might have been a little bit early, but that's just, I grew up in the South in Texas and shooting guns is part of the culture. I've shot thousands of rounds, probably tens of thousands of rounds in my life. I want to get really good at shooting long distances. And so for me, to be able to shoot long distances, to be able to shoot game, at 300-400 yards, I want to be a lot better than that. Like, I want to know that I can hit a mile shot reliably. And even more than that, I want to know that I can hit an 800-yard shot like every time. I don't want to miss that, because I know if I can hit an 800-yard shot every single time, well then shooting that 300, 400, 500-yard shot maybe, that's pretty achievable for me. I want to be able to aim small and not miss, right? And I want to be sure of myself, because the last thing I want is to be, shooting at something and maybe just like wound the animal and, all that stuff, right? I want to be able to take the animal down quickly, give it a good quick death. It's virtually painless because it's just going to happen in a split second, right? One of the things that excites me about doing this series is this rifle and optic setup right here. This is the Ruger Go Wild in 7mm PRC. It's got a Cerakoted barrel in action. It's got a decent stock, not the best stock ever. It's got an upgraded magazine from Ruger's Normal Americans. It feeds a little bit better. It's still plastic, but it's definitely better. The other thing that I've got on here is Swamp Fox Optics, their Kentucky Precision Scope, which is great for hunting or target shooting. I've got a little bit of an overkill scope here. This is the 1:30, I believe. The other thing is I've got their rings on here. So when I ordered this scope and ring setup, it was on their 4th of July sale. I believe that the rings and the scope were under $500, even with tax. So between this rifle and this scope, I'm at around, with tax, I'm at around probably $1,100-1,200 all in for this setup. If I can hit a mile shot with this setup, that would be pretty impressive. I don't know if I can, but I'm sure going to try. One of my friends, he's getting a rifle made in 7 PRC that's a custom, everything's custom, everything's perfectly made by a guy up in Wyoming. His rifle is probably going to cost him around $4,000 to $5,000 when everything's said and done. And that's not including like the scope, bipod, anything, ammo, which ammo for this, it's $50 for a box of 20. So, his setup, maybe I'll use his setup in a video and compare the two. But, his setup, man, it better be able to hit a mile shot, right? So, come join me on this journey to a mile. I don't know how many parts this video series will be. It might just be one, who knows. But we'll get started. So how do we start on this road to a mile? Well, you're going to get your rifle, and if you don't know how to, sight it in, let's do that. So what I would do is on a rifle like this, you can pull your bolt out. I would bore sight it. So set your target up at 25, maybe 50, maybe even 100 yards. Get you something on the other end of the target that is, very easy to see through the naked eye. And then line your bore up the best you can with that, point of impact that you're trying to hit. And then see where your scope is. Your scope might be pretty close, it might be far off. When I put this scope in these rings and cranked everything down to the recommended torque, it was pretty close when I first did it. But I did it at 25 yards. I put one on the paper, and then I went out to 100 yards, and I saw where it hit, and it hit pretty close, but it was high, right? Because if you're going from 25 to 100 yards, it's going to be high. So the point of this, the reason why I would bore sight it, I'd go bore, I'd line your optic up with where your bore is, and then walk it out, is because we're trying not to waste ammo. This is expensive stuff. When you want to, sight things in, but it costs you like a few dollars a round, shoot one shot at 25. If you're on the target from bore sighting it, you're going to be pretty close. You're going to be on the paper at 100. And so then walk it out to 100 and make your adjustments. Your windage and elevation on this Swamp Fox optic, if you were to buy the same thing that I have, are incredibly easy to use. They're just clicks. They have locking turrets up here. I have already, shot one round today, just cold bore, and then I did a lot of talking to the camera. So I think I'm going to shoot 3 more rounds at 100, and then we'll take it out to 200. So we'll do that. So the point of these sandbags for me, in the wild, you're going to need shooting sticks, or you can brace it on your body or go prone, do a kneeling shot, some kind of thing. But for me, the point of these sandbags is to take all the jitters and human things out of this process. And I've already got my optic basically perfectly on sight, where I want it with these sandbags. And so all I have to do is pull the trigger. So I'll shoot a few more rounds and we'll see what kind of a group I get. Alright, so here's my first 3 shots. My first 4 shots. The top 3 up there are with a warmer barrel. This one right there is with a cold barrel. This is 100 yards. Alright, so I've got a good group at 100. It's a little bit high for me, but I'm gonna eventually zero for 200, so I don't really mind it being high. What I want to do at 100 right now is test out. I've got the Hornady match ammo that I've been shooting, that I've been zeroing everything on, which seems to work really great. It's pretty reliable. Of course, Hornady basically popularized this round, but I've also got some Federal, which is for hunting. It's their ELDX, which is 5 grains less. But I want to compare the two and just see if one of them shoots a better group out of this rifle. So that's what I'm going to do now. Alright, I'm going to go hot. Tell you what, the difference between these two is crazy. Very different. So we'll see how they shoot. I'm not super happy with the groupings with the Hornady, but that could be me yanking it, Alright, so a little after action. First group is pretty good. That's Federal. Second group is
okay. That's the Hornady one. I will measure these in just a second. That's Federal again, so all right group. And then this final group is Hornady. It's really pretty dang good. Let's look. So looking at the size of the groups here, this first group is the Federal. It is 1.36 MOA. Not bad. Two of those, I mean, are basically in the same hole with the Federal, so that's awesome. The second group, this one is the Hornady. This is the first group I shot, 1.8 MOA. Third group that I shot, this is the Federal again, 1.97 MOA, so not super great. And then the last group I shot is the Hornady, and you're at about 1.02 MOA, it looks like. Now, I'm not sure how accurate this MOA app that I'm using is, but, you know, two of those bullets are in the same hole. The other one's real close to it. It's good enough for me for 100 yards.
All right, so I put my target out there really far. I ran back because it's muddy, so they're not letting you drive out there. So just did a little sprint back to work on the cardio. The target out there, range finding it, is actually about 250. So it's not 200 yards like they said it would be here at the range. So 250. So I'll like fix my zero. Ultimately, I want a zero for 200. But we'll see how we do. See where we end up on the paper. Well, that works. Right in the center. Okay, so that first shot, I put tape across the center for 250 yards to give me a point to index exactly to. So I'm shooting at this tape line. The bullet went right above the tape. I mean, it's touching the tape. So very close. We're basically zeroed. I'm going to put two more bullets right there to see how it goes. Right on the tape.
Okay, so this is me showing how easy it is to just really quickly reset your zero. So once you have a zero set up on your scope the way you want it, you want to reset your turrets so that the zero is correct.
So far, very impressed with this gun and with this optic and, you know, the overall price. I mean, the fact that I can basically put bullets in the same hole, even at 250 yards so far, is very impressive. I saw one YouTube video, a guy complaining about this exact model, and granted, you know, he might have had not as good of a gun as I got. You know, it's kind of a lottery sometimes with these cheaper guns, and there's no really like one MOA guarantee. But you know, at least with the one that I've got here, bang for the buck, I don't think you can beat it. I don't know if my friend who's got this custom gun on the way, which his gun is 6 times as expensive as mine, I don't know if his is going to be able to beat my groups. That being said, like all of this is done with an extremely novice, like long range shooter. Like I'll be the first to admit that, I mean, yes, I've shot a few targets at long distances, 700, 800, 1,000 yards, but I'm not experienced. I'm not used to pulling the trigger on a hunting rifle. I'm not used to these things. I'm used to shorter range, you know, I can hit a target, a plate of falling plates. I can hit anything, you know, 50 to 100 yards, but I'm not used to like 300 yards like I'm at right now. I am not used to further ranges. So the fact that I'm already getting the groupings I am, I'm like, this is going to be way too easy. So I don't know. There's probably a lot that I'm going to learn along the way. There's probably going to be like pride that comes before the fall. You know, it's going to be a learning process, but so far, man, this thing is crushing it. So at 300 yards, just fired 2 shots, you know, on paper, but a little inconsistently. I only fired 2 shots, so it's like a little hard to tell if I just pulled that one to the right, because I had one that was like not where I wanted it at all. There is a steel target out there. It's at like 350. So I'm gonna see if I can hit it. If I can hit it, that'd be pretty damn good. We'll see what we can do. I got 5 rounds to hit these little steel targets way out there. There she is.